I think most of us understand the pressures involved in bringing a significant other home to meet the family for the first time. Introducing this person has its fair share of risks, especially if our parents have high standards. This person must embody the perfect match envisioned by our parents to be a kind, educated, and well-groomed suitor. So, what happens when race is inserted into the equation? Would a family be more accepting of a person with a tattoo or of a person of a different race? Now, I myself am nowhere near ready to bring someone home to introduce to my family, but it'd be really unfortunate to think I wouldn't be able to do so simply because that person had a different color skin than me. If I were to live, say, 50 years prior to this time, this would most likely be the case. Black and white interracial relationships stand as the most controversial relationship within America. Why is this? I think it's important to consider the history of whites and blacks within America. Before this country was even formed, the very first relationship established between whites and blacks was that of slave owner over slave. This, of course, isn't a great start. This white dominance established an ideology that white purity needed to be protected and maintained. Now, although this ideology existed, there was still a substantial amount of intermixing between whites and blacks. It wasn't uncommon for, say, a male slave owner to have sexual relations with a female slave. And as you would guess, these relationships would often result in mixed children, or what this time would consider mulattoes. Mulattoes challenged those with the ideology that white dominance should be protected because of the fact that they had to take the status of their mother. Therefore, if these children had a slave for a mother and a slave owner for a father, their status would be that of a slave. So in order to discourage types of relationships that would result in these types of children, we see the formation of anti-miscegenation laws or anti-race mixing laws. And it wouldn't be until nearly a century after the emancipation of slaves that these laws would be repealed. In this picture, we have Mildred Jeter and Richard Loving. This couple had gotten married in a state that forbid interracial marriage, and they were therefore sentenced to a year in prison. Rather than accept this punishment, they decided to take the case to court, where it ended up in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found that anti-miscegenation laws violated the 14th Amendment. And so at this point, now it's legal for everyone to marry interracially, but still people had hesitations because of the fact that we had centuries worth of opposition and ideology saying that these types of relationships were wrong. So at this point, in 1968, we have a 20% approval rating for blacks and white interracial marriages. And as you can see, it slowly decreases for the next decade, and this can be attributed to the desegregation of schools and other public places, as well as improvement of the economic standing of blacks. And what we see with this increase in approval is also an increase in the media's portrayal of interracial couples. In 1967, we had the very first portrayal. This is a movie called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Now, this was a very brave move for Hollywood to make because this subject was such a taboo issue. And then when we hit about 1998, the country was looking at a 67% approval rate, and this was the first time that we had broken 50% approval. And with this, we see an abundance of new TV shows and movies, such as Save the Last Dance, Friends, Parenthood, and then, of course, Scandal. So with this increased amount of the media portrayals, we're seeing that Americans are becoming not only more approving of these types of relationship, but the demographic is also changing. We have companies such as Swiffer and Honey Maid who are portraying these interracial couples, which shows that clearly the demographic is changing. Right now, interracial marriages between blacks and whites account for 10.8% of new marriages every year, and this is a substantial jump. So, what does this all mean? This is my family. If you haven't guessed already by looking at the picture, we are an interracial family. And if we hadn't had this shift in ideologies, the shift in laws that made it actually illegal for my family, for my parents to marry, I might not be standing before you today. So, we're at 87% for the country right now, which is awesome, but we still have work to be done. I'm fully confident that we'll be able to hit 100% one day because of the progress we've made, but we still got to get there.